You may be noticing the cost of food at your local grocery store is really expensive, and you may be hearing rumors about a possible food shortage. I'm going to talk about both of those things in this video, and I want to thank my TikTok subscribers for voting on this bonus story for me to cover this week. If you want to vote on the stories I cover, subscribe to my page during my next live event. Let me start this by saying the United States is not going to have a food shortage. Now, I didn't say things were going to be all rainbows and puppy dogs. I said unless something catastrophic happens, we aren't going to see a food shortage in this country. But that doesn't mean other countries won't, and it doesn't mean these high food prices we've been experiencing are going down anytime soon. Do not confuse a food shortage with food costs. Those are two separate things. The fear of a food shortage is mostly in countries that were already in crisis because of weather conditions, political strife, or pandemic problems. It's also become more of a concern for places like North Africa and the Middle East because they are major importers of Ukrainian grain. And in case you didn't know, according to the International Grains Council, Russia and Ukraine combined make up more than a third of the world's wheat and barley exports. The two countries are significant producers of grains, oils, maize, and fertilizers. And for months, a big chunk of that product has been stuck in Ukrainian ports because Russia has set up a blockade and won't allow it to ship out. Despite all of that, according to the United Nations, this year, the agriculture market is forecast to produce just a tiny bit less of wheat, grains, and rice than it did in 2021, but slightly more sugar, meat, milk, and fish globally. The projections for 2023 at this point are not so good, mostly because Ukraine is facing major crop losses in two categories: already harvested crops that can't be exported and future crops that can't or won't be planted because of war damage. But as for this year, if the amount of product being produced globally is similar, why are the prices so high in the U.S.? Well, comparatively, the United States does not import a lot of these essential food products from other countries. We actually produce enough here in our country to be a major exporter of wheat, maize, and grain. But the United Nations says costs for all the food products I just mentioned are up between 15 and 30% or more globally. Here in the U.S., as of May, food costs were more than 10% higher than they were last year. Why? Transporting those products costs more. The need to import certain products like fertilizer costs more. Energy costs more. Labor costs more. Climate impacts to crops and outbreaks of illness among livestock, not to mention global inflation pressures. As for a potential food shortage, the USDA says currently there are no nationwide food shortages and no widespread disruptions in the domestic supply chain. But there may be times when inventory of certain items is temporarily low or gone while stores wait for more stock to come in.